So I originally came to the church after my godfather's funeral. I was introduced, I heard a sermon, and even in the eulogy, I was like, dude, this is very on point and in line with what I grew up with. And so time progressed. At the time, I was about 6 months pregnant with my daughter, which is my second child. And I remember after I had her, I came back and I called and I was like, I need to do a baby blessing. My parents are in town. I'd love for them to be here when that happens. But the backstory is that my first child was never blessed at the previous church that I was at. And one of the reasons why at the previous church that couldn't happen is because when I had my son, I wasn't married at the time. And they said that we don't bless children unless the parents are married. And that was a deal breaker for me. So I took my child and my husband, soon after we got married, I took that and I just left that particular location for about 3 or 4 years. I wasn't involved anywhere. I didn't go anywhere. So come back full circle, I get my daughter blessed and I'm also able to get my son blessed at the same time. And I thought that was a win-win all the way across the board. They didn't know us, we weren't members. We really didn't have any ties or roots to this new church. And that for me, I remember the prayer and I remember Pastor Jeremy praying over my daughter that keep them and cover them from danger seen and unseen, like people who would try to harm children and who are always thinking about harming children. And I just, in that moment, I think I broke spiritually. And I was just a sponge for anything that was coming across the pulpit. And at that point, I just knew that this was the place that I wanted to be. So, interesting enough, as much as the baby blessing kept me away from the church, it was that very thing that brought me back. What I've come to realize is that God is very strategic about what he does, and he is very intentional, and in the sense he plays chess and not checkers. So when he moves you to a different position, you might not understand why you are there in that season, in that moment, but before long he will reveal it to you. And so that's kind of what happened with me. I moved from being a classroom teacher to where I thought I was just kind of floating free, like without a job. And I'm trying to explain that to my husband. He's like, hey, what's going on? And all the time, God was orchestrating something else behind the scenes that I was unaware of. And that just happened to be the children's ministry. Who knew that I would go from being a classroom teacher who was just, serving on the weekends on the praise and worship team, to God repositioning me within the ministry. And now here I am today, full-time staff as children's ministry director, which I believe is a first at the Center of Hope. This is us, serve.